Now, something we have to talk about is the price cuts, guys, because the price cuts are really starting to add up these days. In fact, about 1 in 5 homes on the market in the United States saw a price cut in September. And that's 20%, in case you're not counting there. Homes priced between $350,000 and $500,000 saw the largest amount of price cuts at 21.6% of those listings getting a price cut, while luxury properties over $1 million were less likely to see a price cut, but still 13.3% of those listings got a price cut in September. And one thing that you can gather from that data is price cuts are more common on the lower end of the market because that's where most consumers are at. You know, most people cannot afford a $500,000 house or even a $400,000 house. Median home price in this country is about $430,000, and only about 30% of buyers can afford that. So of course you're going to see more price cuts below $500,000 than above it. That's not really very surprising. People who can afford $1 million house obviously have more financial flexibility than people who can buy only a $300,000 house. And that also further explains what I've been telling you guys here on the channel for quite some time about why the median home price is an unreliable way to look at what's going on in the market. Because those higher end listings that don't see as steep a price cuts and are also the lion's share of the sales right now on the US housing market disproportionately affect the median home price data that we get. So because those homes consistently sell for a lot more, and more of those are selling right now than the houses between the $100,000 and $500,000 price range, well, naturally, that's going to increase the median home price. And now in 2025, we have seen more price cuts on the US housing market than we have seen in any year since the pandemic. Even traditionally strong areas that have been holding up very well are starting to get hit. Like the Midwest and the Northeast, for example, 14% of listings in September in the Northeast had a price cut versus 21% in the South and the West. Homes are also taking a lot longer to sell than they did a year ago. The median time on the market rose to 62 days, which is a week longer than it was last year. And so now basically every market across the country has rising inventory, rising price cuts, and a longer time on the market. What does that tell you about where things are headed right now? On top of that, the lock-in effect is starting to ease up. 3% mortgages are obviously a thing of the past, and 6.5% mortgages are the new normal. And now about 20% of US homeowners with a mortgage has a rate at least 6% or higher. That is the highest share of homeowners with 6% rate or higher since 2015. And people think that these are high interest rates, but really they're just historically normal. It just feels high after having ultra low interest rates for like 3 years in a row. Just think about it. In the middle of 2022, only 7% of homeowners had a 6% or higher rate, and now it has tripled to over 20% in just 3 years. And that's why this whole golden handcuffs and the lock-in effect is going to become less and less of a factor in getting homes listed for sale on the housing market. You just don't have as many people with these low rates anymore, which is one less incentive to keep their house and not sell it. We still have 53% of people with mortgages having a rate below 4%, which is down from the record of 65% back in early 2022. And in many parts of the country, inventory has already returned to pre-pandemic levels. Some areas are even far exceeding pre-pandemic levels. And I want people to really understand this about real estate, is that regardless of what the market is doing, regardless of what the Fed is doing, regardless of what interest rates are, that's not enough to slow down life, okay? Because the reality is people get new jobs, they grow their families, they downsize after retirement, or they simply want to live in a different neighborhood, or they get a divorce, somebody dies, whatever, things happen, which ultimately forces people to sell their house regardless of those external circumstances. At some point, their life circumstances are going to be more important than what's going on in the external world. And that's why we're seeing more and more people with these higher mortgage rates. Also, rates have not been going down recently. They've been continuing to tick up for the past couple of weeks and are sitting at about 6.35% for a 30-year mortgage right now, and have gone up ever since the Fed did its first interest rate cut a month ago. Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, he believes that the magic number is going to be 5.5% to get real estate really moving again in this country. I have to respectfully disagree. I'm not saying I know more about real estate than him. I'm just saying that the trends that we are seeing right now do not support that statement. I'd be willing to bet even if rates went lower than that, it still wouldn't be enough to bring back a serious amount of buyers to really start absorbing the housing supply that's being listed for sale, because the prices will simply still be too high and it will not be affordable at 5% or even 4.5%, probably not even 3%. And nobody should really be expecting mortgage rates to go back below 4%, maybe ever again. That was a historical anomaly that was fueled by poor policy decisions made by the Federal Reserve and the government. In fact, throughout much of the 1980s, mortgage rates were routinely above 10%, and throughout the 1990s, it was routinely above 6%.